So if you haven't been living under a rock like I have, you would have seen something going by the name of the shopping cart theory, or the idea that returning a shopping cart is objectively right and can act as an evaluation of a person's capability of self-governance. While it may be nice to return your shopping cart to a designated area, objectivity is defined by a lack of human feelings and opinions, so an action derived by the goodness of one's heart isn't necessarily objective. To determine if the action is truly objective, we'll need a bit of mathematical logic. Just to be clear, I'm not saying it's right to leave your cart in the middle of a parking spot, because we can objectively measure the property damage and aerodynamic deficiency of dents in your car. But for the sake of the thought experiment, we'll assume everybody leaves their cart in a dead space in which cars can easily maneuver around them. The cart attendant will always travel the same path or the length of the parking lot. So the distances we need to compare are the distance between the cart and the path, and the distance between the cart and the return area. Depending on the length of the parking lot, the distance between the cart and the path might be something like the length of 2 cars, while the distance between the cart and the return area could be anywhere from 0 to 4 car lengths. So people within 2 car lengths should objectively return their carts, since they'd end up walking less than the cart attendant, and people further than 2 car lengths should leave their carts nearby, since the cart attendant would end up walking less than them. But here we run into our first problem. What if there is already a cart located here, 3 car lengths away from the cart return area? Now a person that's 1.75 car lengths away would return the cart there. They'd only have to travel 1.25 car lengths, and the cart attendant would travel 0 extra distance, since there was already a cart present there. But this leads to a huge mess of random variables, and I don't feel like running a Monte Carlo simulation. But we can easily avoid this problem by designing parking lots with more cart return areas. After all, the problem only exists because cart return areas are sparsely spaced across the parking lot. The fact that people leave their carts outside of the designated area signifies the gap between return areas is too large. So why hasn't this happened yet? The point of a parking lot is to have a compact area to store cars because CEOs like money and land doesn't grow on trees. Also, people don't like walking. If we were to add return areas with 4 parking spaces in between, that would mean parking lots would have to be 12.5% bigger to accommodate the same number of cars, which would increase the average travel distance by at least 10%. But this problem only exists because of cars. With less cars to park, less parking spaces would be needed. So it might be tempting to say fuck cars at this point, but they're only the surface of the problem. People drive cars to buy groceries not because they're too lazy to walk, but because they buy a week's worth of them. They buy a week's worth of groceries not because they're lazy, but because the distance between their home and the store doesn't justify frequent trips over the week. And other modes of transportation aren't viable because the US is big and public transportation is practically non-existent, due to geographical limitations and America's obsession with suburbia. So you can blame humans for not returning their carts and label the whole thing as some social theory. But at the end of the day, humans are nothing more than walking reward functions. Functions that will only operate optimally if the system rewards them properly for doing so. And just to be clear, things like social gratification and not standing out in public are also rewards. Just to be extra clear, people are stupid, they'll always break rules. So sometimes it's the rules and the context surrounding those rules that needs to be re-evaluated to get your desired outcome.